6.5.
You want that in thousands, right?
No, millions.
Oh, millions?
Yeah. We just put the bucket aside.
What?
Now,
Trying to figure out
let me
how
just
wide.
do Y over P over here to show you that what I've got in front. So this number, 2011, is, well, let's go to 2015. 2015 will be equal to the Y of 2015
I get this.
divided by population. Look at that number. And we'll take now, if we look at my projection on here for 2015, I should have the same number, that's scenario 1. 16 on 5. It's the same number. And likewise for 2020, will be equal to this number divided by that number.
Well, I got one, it was just not clear, but
And we'll bring that down.
you can say, you're not gonna revert to that.
So that's 1715. If you check it against my sheet, it's 1715. And the last number,
Yeah, what are the reasons paying these things? I'm thinking about it. You can get this kind of detail. No, I know.
that's going to be equal
It should be eating.
to this number divided by that
Eat
number.
if the wasn't holiday.
Oh, it's 1 divided by
Yeah, it's today and 4 days, I think. He was actually yesterday. He said he was going to come today, but I don't know, he probably didn't speak this week. Yeah, I mean, like to sell it to him. Well,
And
he'll be able to sell to him, right?
so these agree with the numbers that I have on my page.
I'm talking about that kind
These. Now, the next thing we want to do, this is the supply. This is what the supply side says that we're going to get.
I divided by Y, and then divided by I.
Now, the next thing we want to do is
First,
get these C's. And these C's depend upon these Y's. So we're going to go over here to data.
Got it.
Data analysis.
Oh, how'd you get I mean, how'd you get
And down here to regression.
Second regression. I don't know that. I was hoping we could go through.
And the explanatory variable will be C. The explained variable. And that'll be explained by Y. We have labels. I can put that right here. Unfortunately for me, I got a negative intercept. Consumption function can never have a negative intercept.
Wow, right, you do too.
So what I'll have to do is go back to this Go back to that,
Hmm.
and click over here where it says constant is 0. Okay?
Yeah. We have classes on Monday.
And then we repeat it.
Forget it. Monday and
And now,
Tuesday.
we're going to rewrite it. And this is what I get.
Nobody sends an alert anyway.
The 0 over here is 0.75. With 0.757873 represents the average propensity to consume. So
Okay.
we can now set up C. That would be equal to 0.7578
Okay.
73 times Y.
Is there any direct correlation between the average propensity to consume and GDP?
No.
Without this correlation.
It has to do with consumption.
Yes.
You know what it means? The average propensity, you know what it means? You know what the parameter means? What does it mean? Now, what does it mean, the average propensity?
How much,
Say it one more time.
how much money does the person get?
Okay.
Higher.
How you do that?
That's true, but what does it mean, the average propensity?
Somebody told me to look at
It has nothing to do with anybody computer.
It's a consumption function.
Anybody could explain to what the average propensity, yeah.
The amount of income that's allocated to consumption, like proportion, like if you multiply the income by the MPC, it gives you what portion of the income you'll consume.
Exactly.
What proportion of?
The average propensity to consume says for every dollar of GDP, how much of it will the household spend? All right? And this number that we got is about 73 cents. And for every dollar 73 cents, every dollar of GDP, households in the country will be spending about 73 cents.
So that's what that Y coefficient means in the regression analysis? Yes. Okay.
This is the average propensity. We would rather work with the marginal propensity, but we couldn't estimate it with this country. Because we had a negative intercept.
The same thing happened.
Intercept has to be positive in order to get the margin. That's for next week. Did you have any more last week? Yes.
Household, it's household
what's the next
consumption,
one?
general government.
So what's a good marginal,
Final
what's a good
consumption, gross capital formation.
As long as this is
Goods
positive,
and services,
you're fine.
imports of goods and
As long as the intercept is positive, you're fine. If it's not, the intercept is not positive, you got to suppress it to 0 and use the average.
That's gross capital formation.
What's a good average propensity?
Yeah, common sense, without.
Like
Any,
for-
any one you get.
Yeah.
Whatever you get for the country is a good. The way it works is this. If you put income over here and consumption over here, and you draw a 45-degree line like that,
Do you know what the x and y variable is?
the
Is to
consumption
find
function has to
the
look
I
like
core.
this.
Damn it.
And this number over here is that intercept. It has another name. Does anybody know the name, the technical name of the intercept of the consumption function?
Is it autonomous consumption?
Exactly, autonomous consumption.
Make sure that's right. No, they're doing it as much as you have to change it.
Okay, it has to be positive. What it means is that is the amount of consumption that you would have to keep people alive, even if they had no money. All right? That's what it means. If it's negative, it doesn't make any sense from a physical point of view. Now the slope of this line which is delta C over delta Y, that is the marginal propensity. That's the marginal. Slope of that line. But if this turns out to be negative, that means that we have a problem. So we use the average propensity. Yeah, it would be down there.
How to do the regression.
Now, why that happens is because we don't have good consumption data. That's why I put the discrepancy in the consumption. We don't have good consumption data. The statistical office in the country can get a pretty good idea of GDP by adding up the value added on the production side. They have pretty good statistics about imports because they get that from their tariff, from their duty. They have a government official working wherever imports come in, they check it off, they tax it. So they know that. They have a pretty good idea of what their exports are because they know all the companies that are exporting, and they'll do a survey of them to find out what they export, so they'll have a good idea of the exports. And they'll have a pretty good idea of what private investment is. Because they can go to every firm in the country, survey them, and ask them how much they invested the last year, and they can check that against what they have on their income tax. So they can come up with a good estimate of investment. But consumption is the consumption of households. To get a handle on that, you have to go to every household and ask them what they spent. And do you know what happens when you go in a household and you ask people what they spent? If they're a rich household, they'll tell you they spend a lot less. If they're a poor household, they'll tell you they'll spend a lot more. Oh, I bought this, I bought that, you know. So you don't know what they spent. The Brazilians tried to tackle that problem one time in the 1970s. They were trying to get some decent consumption figures. So what they did was they hired every young Brazilian who graduated from college in sociology and economics to work on a project for the Census Bureau. They're the top of the Census Bureau, the statistical office. And they sent them out to the villages all over Brazil to live with families and to take notes about how they spent their money. And then we record the number of eggs they bought each day, when they bought shoes, where they spent money, when they had to trade things, when they bartered. And then they put it together. That was done under a very famous statistician by the name of Kurtnetsky, who was the Minister of Statistics in Brazil.
You said it was psychology and economics, or sociology?
Sociology.
Sociology, economics, whoever was smart enough to do the job, but they used college graduates. And these people went out in the villages, in little places, that way out where nobody lived, and lived with those people, the poor people. They didn't do it with the rich people, they did it with the poor people. The rich people had better. They did it with the poor people to find out exactly what they were spending. And then they improved their consumption. One of the things they found out from that study, which took about 3 years to do it, but one of the things they found out from that study is that poor people pay much more for simple things than rich people. Because they buy in small volume. Like a rich person might buy 10 eggs, a poor person will buy 1 egg or 2 eggs, depending on the need for the day. And they pay more per egg. They spend less on, they're sicker because of it.
When you say 1 egg and 10, 12 eggs, there is no
Well, I don't know, that's true, but, you know, it's all natural. Sometimes they're better off. There are no hormones or anything in chickens. Yeah, they're getting all natural food. They're not getting all that artificial stuff. I work hard.
I-Corps, how do you get I-Corps?
No, I-Corps is easy.
I-Corps is 1 divided by.
Well, consumption is a big, big problem in all the national accounts.
That's what I'm asking. That's
It's a
how
very
you
big problem.
If you do get
And that's why you get
I-Corps,
20%.
that with 1.
I know. That's, I just asked how to get this.
Oh, yeah, how do you do that?
No, not a second, now. Let them kind of-
Then I don't know the funds.
It might help. You know, there are a lot of people, especially poor people, who are not paying
Oh, so much. You didn't do that?
New York State Development.
That's why.
That shows you how much.
It's y minus plus.
No, I did it.
The current way
Remember why I was over here? That's insane.
That Y
Let's just try that again. What do we do? Yeah.
Now, does everybody see how I got that consumption? And why I use that average propensity to consume rather than
The largest numbers.
it's your RY times the Y.
Here.
And the year before.
Right.
Here's how I got that. I took this number over
Your
here,
RY
multiplied it by
times.
Y.
And then it'll grow by that number, yeah. It'll grow by that RY.
Oh, you did super like that.
Now,
It's YT over sum of R.
when we think
YT plus 1.
that compute what C over Y, it'll go down to this.
Yeah, and Y less Y, and then sum of I.
By the way, that number, that average propensity to consume, is a very reasonable average propensity to consume.
I have
That a country spends about 74 cents of every dollar at the household level.
Or do you know the LN?
That makes sense.
Yes, I'm sure. It's like-
Now, the next thing we want to do is get a demand function for imports. So we're going to go up here again to data.
Here it is.
We go to data analysis. We go to regression.
LN 1 divided by Y. How do I have
Now,
that?
over here, we had consumption. Then we'll erase that and put in imports. And then we'll take this thing out where it says constant is equal to 0. And we'll put this where we put the consumption figure. Same spot. Okay. Now this is what we get for imports. So for imports, we get a very strange thing again, it's called negative. Our import function looks like this. Where we get this negative intercept. And that negative intercept is the minus 2407. Very big. And you notice what we get for the marginal propensity, 0.999. Something like that. 0.90.
The X range for this one was what?
Sorry?
We made the Y range,
Imports.
The X range was what?
Why?
Y, okay.
Right?
YT plus 1
What's the economic reasoning behind it? Who can figure that out? Why do we use a function of y is equal to a plus b, m is equal to a plus b, y? What is the economic reasoning?
Yes.
So this is for imports.
I asked the question.
This is for imports.
What is the economic reasoning for this function?
Wait, what was that second question?
Come on, you're all supposed to be economics based. What would be the economic reason?
This one?
For this function?
M is equal to A plus B. It's on the board.
For net exports?
Sure.
Yeah, I just double checked it.
What is the economic theory behind that kind of thing? You can't do this stuff unless you understand the economic reason for it. No, they got different A to B.
So this is for imports, and we did imports in the Y range, and then. I don't understand stuff.
Well, estimating that equation over, M is equal to A plus BY. Why do we use that functional form? What is the economic reason? That's what I'm asking. I want you to understand the economics of this, you go to the computer part.
So why do we use A plus B?
What imports are a function of income?
Okay, why does that make sense, that import to a function of income?
This has something to do with the
Well,
exchange rate.
What you earn is what you're capable of buying.
What?
What you earn is what you're capable of buying, no?
Right. The more people earn in the household, the more they're willing to buy imports.
That's Japan, for example.
Japan does just the opposite. They hold back their imports, so they export. They have an export orientation. But most countries, if they get more income, they go and buy foreign goods. Why do they buy foreign goods? Because they like them.
Okay. Thought that was gonna be
They
the
like
answer.
You know what happens when you go back to your country and you bring something from the United States?
That's right.
People love it.
Did you bring those Yankee dollars?
Especially in developing countries, because in developing countries, they don't have the range of domestic production of all the goods they would like to have. So they import them. In most developing countries, they don't make automobiles. In most developing countries, they don't make a lot of manufacturers. They import.
They don't make anything at all.
So X equals Y on both of these?
So as
Did you get that second
household
question?
income goes up,
Yeah.
people
X
will
equals,
buy
X
more
equals
imports.
Y
And in the case of
No, I mean,
In the case of Paraguay, it shows a steep rise,
Is the one.
very steep rise.
and the X.
And you have to look at what Paraguay produces to understand that rise. Probably, it's primarily an agricultural country. And what they're buying are manufactured from abroad.
They don't have ports. They don't have ports.
Interesting.
It's a country that has no position.
It's landlocked.
Y.
But what do they produce in it? They don't produce manufactured, they produce agricultural products. Meat, that's an agricultural product. Comes off the farm. So what they're importing are electronics. You're importing cars. You're importing all those other things that they like to have that they don't produce for themselves. And as the income goes up, the demand for those imports is greater. You know what they call that in economics? The annual effect. Annual effect. The demand for goods rises with income. The more money you have. Imagine you go out and you win the lottery and they're going to give you $500,000 a month, a year for the rest of your life. What are you going to do? You're not going to give it away. You might give some of it away, but you're going to increase your consumption. And you'll be buying a lot of imported goods. You might decide to have a case of French champagne delivered to your door every Monday. If you have that kind of money. That's the economic, you gotta look at the economic, whenever you do this modeling, you gotta look at the economic reason. Now, this is a simplification, it doesn't explain everything. But money explains a lot. Quantitative money. There's a whole group of economists called monetary. They say money explains everything. They can predict everything through money. So that's what we're going to be doing for imports. Now, in the case of imports, we're not going to make the same adjustment that we made for consumption. We're going to allow that intercept to be negative.
So find R1. As you find funds,
Find what?
What would negative imports be?
Find R1.
Oh, that would be, negative imports would be a surplus,
Huh?
an export surplus, a trade surplus, negative imports. That'd be a trade surplus, isn't that right? Am I crazy?
Import.
Think about what there could be negative imports. I mean, when they, if their income went down to zero, then they would have negative imports. How would you interpret that?
You exporting more,
Huh?
you exporting more and importing less?
Yeah, what it would mean is that if income went down to zero, they wouldn't import. They'd have to export, earn the cash to re-import. All right, but that's kind of a fictional type of thing.
Why is supposed to
We'll
be
leave that in
I
there in case of.
divided by Y divided by I. That's what it is, right?
We'll see how well it explains these.
Divided by, it's sigma I, divided by sigma Y.
Mine is K4, so
So put the imports over here,
divided by.
that's an equal,
But that's for the province here, it says I over Y.
a minus
He
2,
doesn't put the sigma. He said,
4, 0, 7.
I added
Point
like the
2,
sigma.
4,
Okay.
plus
Supposed to be.
That's fantastic.
0.9, 0, 1, 582 times y. So we get control shifting.
Oh, yeah, so this regression. Well, okay, so this is.
Pull that back.
Okay, so I'm
Now, we'll take care of the decimal places. Oh, leave any decimal places.
See, that's the thing, I have to multiply that by.
So now we've got imports and we've got consumption. This is the demand side of the economy. The demand side of the economy works on what you would do if you had money. What do you want if you have money, right?
I would hire Mike to get unpaid and have to pay attention.
Now, at this point, it's a good idea to check these figures to see if they're not going wild. The way we check it is to compute the shares in GDP. And we'll do this by percentages. We'll start with C. It's going to be equal to 100